Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tangmen based on novel. So let's start. A streak of golden light that looked like a moving dragon appeared within the area where all the soul tools were deployed. The streak of golden light was simply too quick. Wherever it passed, soul tools were instantly destroyed, and pathetic screams started to ring out. The third elder shouted, "What are the aerial surveillance soul tools doing? Lock onto them." As he spoke, he shot a look at the fourth elder. He had to hold the fort here and control Huo Yuhao and the other two. It was more suitable for the fourth elder to deal with that streak of golden light. The fourth elder nodded slightly. Soul rings started to rise from beneath his feet as he lifted his right hand. There were 9 soul rings, 2 yellow, 3 purple and 4 black. They showed off his immense titled Doluo abilities. A thick black fog was also released from his body, engulfing him completely. No part of his body could be seen. This black fog started to descend. As it shifted, it revealed a sharp aura, even though it looked very gentle. In a flash, it reached the ground. A crisp sound of striking metal echoed out, and the fourth elder's black fog stopped moving, along with that streak of golden light. The figure that was flashing within the golden light materialized and appeared in front of everyone. When she appeared, she immediately caught everyone's attention. Even the evil soul masters were drawn to her, because she was simply too beautiful. Her powder blue wavy hair flowed behind her head, and there was a layer of frost covering her ravishing face. An illusory golden dragon subtly appeared around her body. She was also holding a long spear with 2 pointed sides, pointed diagonally towards the sky. Even though she was standing in place, she seemed like the greatest creation ever. At this moment, she was looking at Huo Yuhao trapped within the third elder's lightning net with her big, powder blue eyes. Huo Yuhao appeared to be in a daze. Following this dazed look turned into a touched and guilty look. Yes, this person with such ravishing looks, wavy hair, and beautiful eyes was the golden dragon girl, Wang Cha. Huo Yuhao didn't understand why Wang Cha was here at such a time. However, he had mixed feelings right now. "Cha, you were really silly. It's not worth it for me." Huo Yuhao slowly shut his eyes, as he took in a deep breath, and gradually retracted his domain of perpetual ice. However, the layer of golden light on his body became stronger. His eye of destiny was completely open at this point, and there seemed to be countless streaks of golden light shining in this vertical eye. It appeared to be boundless. At the same time, a thin golden line also appeared on Wang Cha's forehead. In the next instant, it split open, revealing another golden vertical eye. It was also shining with countless streaks of golden light, and it seemed identical to Huo Yuhao's Eye of Destiny. Everything around them seemed to solidify when these 2 eyes of destiny opened. Time and space were completely locked at this instant. Even the third and fourth elders were drawn to the golden lights from their eyes. In the next moment, Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha lifted their heads together and faced their eyes of destiny towards the sky. 2 beams of golden lights shot into the sky at the same time. These 2 beams of golden light illuminated everything, and the sky turned bright gold at this final moment before dawn arrived. These 2 beams of lights intersected and instantly burst to a higher position. The pre-dawn darkness was torn apart, and a huge golden vertical eye appeared in the air. Streaks of golden lights scattered everywhere and engulfed everyone. Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha were the first 2 to be affected by these streaks of golden light. An illusory projection of a golden vertical eye appeared behind their backs, turning them slightly illusory. As for the rest, including Nan Shueishui and Nan Chocho, they felt that there was something in their bodies controlling them as these streaks of golden light engulfed their bodies. An indescribable sense of crisis and suppression quickly spread in their hearts. Destiny Gaze. This was the true, complete version of Destiny Gaze. Apart from Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha, a small vertical eye also appeared above everyone's heads. However, the vertical eyes above Nan Shueishui and Nan Chocho were a dim gold. The vertical eyes above the rest were icy white. "Take action. Quick, kill them," a sharp scream sounded out. The first to react weren't the 2 titled Doluo, but the 8-ringed soul Doluo, Wu Yu. She had a spiritual type martial soul, and so she was the least astonished by everything that was happening. However, she was also the most sensitive to danger. The feeling of having her destiny controlled by someone else filled her spirit of vengeance with fear. Along with the deep impression that the scene in Huo Yuhao's imitation had given her, She only had one thought in her mind right now: escape. The only way for her to escape was to kill Huo Yuhao, Wang Cha, and the rest. After she killed them, everything would return to normal. Her screams was filled with spiritual undulations. The soul engineers, who were in a daze, were immediately jolted awake. Suddenly, countless streaks of blue light wove in the air and started to reach towards Huo Yuhao and the rest. Most of the firepower was targeted towards Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha. However, something strange happened at this moment. These soul rays and cannon shells that shot towards the four of them struck nothing. It seemed as if they had covered every angle, and that Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha couldn't possibly escape, but nothing they fired hit them. The soul rays and cannon shells simply brushed past their bodies. It was as if some mysterious, special force was protecting them from harm. Even Nan Shueishui and Nan Chochio were spared from harm, as many soul rays simply brushed past their bodies. Idiot, who told you to attack? Seal our surroundings and don't let them escape. The third elder shouted furiously and tightened his lightning net, which helped to block off the attacks coming from the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion for Huo Yuhao and the rest. While Huo Yuhao was just a good research subject, he couldn't let Nan Shueishui and Nan Chochio come to harm. Just as he shouted, Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha moved at the same time, as though they were telepathically linked. Huo Yuhao sank down, and it seemed as if he was trying to collide against the lightning net below him. Wang Cha twisted and charged upward towards Huo Yuhao. The fourth elder naturally wouldn't let her go to Huo Yuhao's aid. He snorted, and black fog spread from his body. A sinister beam of cold light instantly surfaced, and slashed towards Wang Cha's head. The fourth elder's martial soul was a netherworld sword. His netherworld sword was extremely special. It could create another alternate plane of space that was illusory, mysterious and unpredictable when it was used. Every time this alternate plane of space was created, he needed to ignite someone's spirit as the price. As his cultivation increased and he became a titled Doluor, he could only seal the souls of 9 dead people. After using them, he had to replace them. Even with all this, he was still considered one of the evil soul masters that had committed the fewest sins. This attack of his was called Netherworld Slash, the fourth elder's first soul skill. It was sharp and quick. With the abilities of a titled Doluor, even a small hill could be slashed in half with this soul skill. The third elder revealed a disdainful look on his face when he saw how Huo Yuhao charged downward. He mimicked a clenching action, and his lightning net shrank once again. He was confident in his soul tool. No protective barrier was effective against his lightning net. An invincible barrier could only protect one's body, but it couldn't help one breach his lightning net. Huo Yuhao had unleashed an invincible barrier earlier. After some time, it had slowly faded away. Right now, the third elder thought he was courting death by clashing directly with his lightning net. His lightning net was called Lightning God's Binding, a Class 8 soul tool. Although it was mainly control type, it was still classified as a Class 8 soul tool in terms of its strength. Huo Yuhao dove downward while Wang Cha charged upwards, and they were both facing the interception of a titled Doluor. However, they weren't looking at their opponents at this moment. Rather, they were looking at each other. Wang Cha saw an apologetic and doubtful look in Huo Yuhao's eyes, but Huo Yuhao could only see Wang Cha's determination. The two of them were getting closer and closer, but the two titled Doluor also intercepted them at this moment. They were less than 50 meters from each other, but these 50 meters were like a huge divide that was separating them right now. They didn't have any verbal interaction, and Huo Yuhao didn't even unleash his spiritual detection. However, another change occurred at this moment. Their left legs shone at the same time. A strange yet blurry light flashed. In the next instant, the third elder's retracted lightning net swept through nothing but air, and the fourth elder's netherworld slash hit nothing. Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha had both disappeared at this instant. Even though they disappeared for only an instant, they managed to avoid the interception of these two titled Doluor. When they appeared again, they were already next to each other. 6 eyes were looking at each other. Apart from the normal 2 pairs of eyes, there was also the pair of eyes of destiny. Why do you have to do this? Huo Yuhao asked gently. Wang Cha looked at him coldly, and something flashed across her eyes. Because I'm willing to. Huo Yuhao sensed how warm Wang Cha's palm was when he held her hand. Their soul powers were instantly, completely connected. Their eyes of destiny shone brightly on their foreheads, and they also released golden lights from their bodies at the same time. Their auras experienced transformations at this moment. The golden dragon, that initially revolved around Wang Cha now suddenly revolved around both of them. The azure lights that came from Huo Yuhao's body were also released with their bodies as the center. Yes, it was a martial soul fusion. When they held hands, they completed their martial fusion. Huo Yuhao had never thought of giving the fusion between him and Wang Cha a name. However, he was willing to call it the Huo power now. He didn't know why Wang Cha had appeared at this moment. However, Wang Cha's arrival gave him hope in this life and death moment. After months of closed-door cultivation, he also became clearer over many things. The debt he owed Wang Cha became much deeper right now. He had only once ever asked himself whether Wang Cha really didn't belong in his heart. The answer was negative. When he learned that Wang Cha plucked another vine of yearning heartbroken grass to save him at the Icefire Yin-Yang well, a slit opened in his heart for her. When that golden dragon rose into the sky, its roars reverberated, and Wang Cha's powder blue wavy hair appeared in front of him. Apart from feeling guilty, he was also excited. The fighting intent in his heart was instantly ignited and started to burn unprecedentedly strongly. No matter what, he had to charge out. It was for himself, for Wang Donga and for Wang Cha. While Huo Yuhao was burning with passion and feelings, Wang Cha felt very cool. There was a cool aura coming from Huo Yuhao's palm. This cool was extremely comfortable, especially when her hand was being held by his strong yet stable hand. She only felt that her heart had collided with something. The resilience that she had mustered up before coming seemed to be crushed once again. Nemesis. He's my nemesis. Wang Cha pursed her lips tightly. However, she also blushed slightly, which made her look even more captivating. If she was with him, so what if she was against thousands of enemies? Only the two of them knew their own psychological changes. Even though they hadn't faced many enemies together in the past, they seemed to already have great telepathy with each other, and it wasn't inferior to that between Huo Yuhao and Wang Donga. Their instant teleportation, left leg bones, brought them close to each other. When their martial souls fused, they both surpassed their original cultivations and reached another realm. At this point, Huo Yuhao was holding onto Wang Cha with his right hand. His left hand was empty. When he pulled Wang Cha, he lifted his left hand, and the little snow lady silently separated from his back. A white glow started to ripple behind Huo Yuhao's back, too. Another miraculous scene was also playing out behind Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha. After they unleashed their destiny gaze earlier, a projection of a vertical eye had appeared behind each of their backs. These vertical eyes now also turned orange gold. The third elder's thunder god's binding lost its effect in the sky, and he had no choice but to stop, as he was shocked. Nan Shuai and Nan Qiuqiu were still stuck within his binding, and he had to deal with them first. He lifted his right hand and pulled them to his side. However, Wu Yu was impatient, and she unleashed her pitch-black spirit of vengeance immediately. She screamed and charged towards Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha in fear. A streak of deep blue light swept past the sky, carrying a sinister chill and the Snow Emperor's pride. It didn't even bother with the fourth elder's netherworld sword and went directly for his head. His netherworld sword only swept past Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha. They didn't even intend to dodge this attack. Did the fourth elder make a mistake? However, Huo Yuhao's Empress's sword, the Snowless Glacier, landed directly on the black fog. The black fog where the fourth elder was, instantly took form and converted into the sword tip of his netherworld sword before it shot upward, blocking Huo Yuhao's Snowless Glacier. However, something weird occurred. As the two swords were about to clash, Huo Yuhao's Empress sword seemed to be guided by an unknown force. Even the fourth elder's lock-on abilities lost their effect at this moment, and Huo Yuhao's Empress sword brushed past his netherworld sword before slashing at his black fog. What? The fourth elder groaned. As he retracted his black fog, he reappeared in mid-air and turned into an ice sculpture. Even though this ice encasement was crushed in the next moment, the fourth elder was still struck by Huo Yuhao's Empress sword, and he staggered back. The entire process happened very quickly, but it was still unbelievable. How was the fourth elder so easily hit in this direct clash against his opponent, even though he was a titled Doluo? In addition, Huo Yuhao's abilities were miles below him. Huo Yuhao revealed a slight smile on his face. He turned and lifted his head. His eye of destiny was flashing purplish gold right now. It was his spiritual shock. Wu Yu suddenly stopped in mid-air. Following this, she screamed pathetically and was even flung backward. While she was supposed to have great immunity against Huo Yuhao's abilities given that she was also a spiritual type soul master, she was completely suppressed, as her spiritual cultivation was inferior to Huo Yuhao's spiritual cultivation. Huo Yuhao's pure spiritual cultivation was already superior to hers. In addition, his soul power had fused with Wang Cha's soul power, and thus his overall soul power had increased. In terms of cultivation, this combination of Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha wasn't any weaker than Wu Yu. While Huo Yuhao attacked, Wang Cha didn't stay idle. When Huo Yuhao unleashed his Empress Palm, she was clearly aware of what he was trying to do. She raised her golden dragon spear, and golden light emanated from her body. These golden lights, which seemed to shine in thick layers, instantly gathered toward her right hand. Huo Yuhao's Empress Palm slashed the ice sculpture. In the next instant, Wang Cha's spear turned into a streak of golden light that shot straight towards the fourth elder's chest. Wang Cha was extremely adept in direct confrontations. Her terrifying strength made her publicly recognized as the top dragon warrior in the Continental Elite Youth Soul Master Tournament. Right now, she wasn't just unleashing her own strength. She also had Huo Yuhao's soul power to supplement her. Considering that their soul powers were completely compatible, the fusion of their soul powers didn't just spark a linear increase. That streak of golden light carried both Wang Cha's strength and Huo Yuhao's spiritual intent, and it reached the fourth elder instantly. The fourth elder groaned, and a dark green light shone from his netherworld sword. A tragic scream sounded, and a human-shaped figure could dimly be seen getting crushed. The light that came from the fourth elder's netherworld sword turned weird. The dark green sword light was refracted, and caused everything to look as if it came from two different worlds. Another purplish netherworld sword silently appeared and maintained a parallel position to the dark green netherworld sword. Wang Cha's golden dragon spear rapidly shot forward and stabbed, just in between the fourth elder's two netherworld swords. However, they combined together at this moment, and a strong layer of silver light was released from between these two swords. There was a clang of metal, and Wang Cha's spear shook tremendously. It had already stabbed halfway between the two swords, but it didn't manage to stab completely past them. It thus failed to reach the fourth elder's chest. Wang Cha's expression changed slightly. In the next instant, her spear had already turned into a streak of flowing light and sprang into the air. The fourth elder's 9 soul rings started to flash once each, but in a random order. Yes, this was his netherworld sword's ability to utilize the power of space. The fourth elder coldly stared at them. You wasted a netherworld soul of mine. In that case, I'll use your souls to replace it. His dark green netherworld sword shot forward, while his purplish sword disappeared. However, his second and third soul rings lit up at the same time. He was about to unleash his netherworld force and myriad netherworld blades. Green lights shone extremely brightly, and the fourth elder's netherworld sword instantly grew larger. It changed into countless sharp swords that shot towards Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha. Suddenly, the entire sky turned green, and space itself seemed as if it were about to be destroyed. This was what a titled Doluor was capable of. Even though the fourth elder's cultivation couldn't compare to Elder Xian, he was still a titled Doluor, and his fighting strength was still extremely terrifying. Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha turned extremely serious. However, they had no intention of backing down. The two of them stared at each other. Wang Cha quickly moved in front of Huo Yuhao, and he let go of her hand. Instead, he tightened his hands around the sides of her waist. Wang Cha's waist was very slender. Huo Yuhao's hands covered 2/3 the circumference of her waist just like that. However, her slender waist was filled with explosive strength. Wang Cha shouted, and 7 soul rings rose from beneath her feet. Yes, 7 soul rings. Wang Cha had managed to advance from 6 rings to 7 rings in just a few months. Apart from the soul power increase she got from the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley, her own cultivation had also improved significantly through the tournament earlier. She was now a soul sage, and had improved significantly from before. A gigantic golden dragon head silently appeared in front of her body. She faced her palms together before wrapping them against each other. At this moment, her first, second and third soul rings lit up. Her first, second and third soul skills, golden dragon body, dragon strength, and golden dragon's fist respectively, were unleashed at this moment. Netherworld swords kept on flashing past in the air, but they struck at nothing instead of Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha because of the power of destiny. However, the fourth elder was using a domain attack. After sensing that it wasn't having any effect, he quickly made adjustments. A few netherworld swords still came towards the two of them. Wang Cha suddenly pushed the palms that were facing each other out. A sonorous dragon roar reverberated out, and a ball of golden light blew apart within the patch of green lights. A wild and immense strength was unleashed among the green lights, as if it were an explosive bomb that had just gone off. Boom, boom, boom. A tremendous explosion tore through the air, and streaks of sword light were deflected away and crushed. Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha's aura didn't seem to be weaker than the title Doluo opposite them, even though they were staggering backward. Inside the lightning net, Nan Shueishui and Nan Qiuqiu had already been pulled to the third elder's side. He used 2 chains to trap them, soul tools that could restrain soul power. Those who were soul emperors and below couldn't possibly use their abilities under the restraint of such soul tools. To the third elder, Nan Shueishui was under the influence of the soul eradicating powder, while Nan Qiuqiu was only a soul king. He just needed these 2 soul tools to restrain them. Nan Shueishui didn't resist. She was very focused on the fight that was going on in awe. The third and fourth elders might not know who Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha were. However, how could Nan Shueishui not know who the 2 of them were? One of them was the team leader of Shrek, while the other was the linchpin of the Tang sect. Since they could compete in the Continental Youth Soul Master Tournament, that meant that they weren't 20 years old yet. They were around the same age as her daughter, but they had already demonstrated how brilliant they were. Nan Shueishui had always thought that her daughter was already very outstanding. However, Nan Qiuqiu was simply too inferior to Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha. The 2 of them were actually able to survive several confrontations against a title Doluo, and they didn't seem to be on the back foot either. If word of this spread, how proud would they feel? Of course, the 2 of them wouldn't become too excited because of this. The fourth elder was simply putting too much pressure on them. He was a 9-ringed title Doluo. Huo Yuhao had always known that title Doluo were extremely strong. In Shrek Academy, he knew many title Doluo and transcendent Doluo. However, it was 2 different things to know a title Doluo and to fight a title Doluo. He felt like the fourth elder's netherworld sword could tear them apart at any time. Huo Yuhao and Wang Cha's fused soul power was quickly declining after they blocked this blow of his. If this continued, they wouldn't be able to resist his attacks for long. Cha. Huo Yuhao called to Wang Cha through his spiritual power. What? Wang Cha seemed to reply him less coldly. I have an idea to get their attention. When I draw their attention later, leave. It's impossible to charge out from here, given our abilities. We only have one opportunity, and I'll help you create it. At most, they'll capture me. When you return to the academy, just think of a way to rescue me. Huo Yuhao's voice was very calm, and was filled with confidence. Wang Cha was silent, and didn't utter a sound. Cha, did you hear me? Huo Yuhao quickly probed. There wasn't much time left. Wang Cha sighed before she replied, all right. They were already suffering against one title Doluo, and there was still another one for them to face. Huo Yuhao took in a deep breath, then dragged Wang Cha with both his hands to his side. She spun around, and they changed positions. She was now behind Huo Yuhao. However, she didn't just place her hands around his waist like he did to her earlier. When she came behind him, she wrapped her arms around his waist. She stuck close to his body and hugged him without any gaps. Wang Cha's body was warm and cushiony. She wrapped her arms around his waist strongly, but didn't make him feel restrained. He felt indescribably relieved. Wang Cha's surging soul power poured into his body, while she seemed to forget that she was on a battlefield right now. She twisted her head to one side and gently rested it on the back of Huo Yuhao's shoulder, staying close to him. A delicate fragrance spread, and Huo Yuhao was still distracted by Wang Cha, even though he was fighting a life-and-death battle. Cha. Huo Yuhao silently called in his heart. I'm sorry. If I didn't meet Donga, perhaps. However, I've given my life to Donga. Just let me use this last moment to completely sever this yearning in your heart. You must live well in the future, and find someone who dotes on and loves you. Forget me. An unequivocal look flashed across Huo Yuhao's eyes. At this moment, his arms drooped beside his body, and his hair didn't move. His eyes started to fill with silver light, and a look of remembrance slowly spread across them. Donga. Huo Yuhao smiled, and his spiritual intent seemed to rise to another level. Waves started to rage in his spiritual sea. Teacher Electrolux, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I can't pass down your legacy anymore. Ice Empress, Brother Skydream, Snow Lady, I'm sorry. I can't continue to charge towards the path of gods with all of you in the future. When I leave, I'll pass all of you to Chioa. Chioa isn't less gifted than me. She has the same power of destiny in her body, and she even has the pure bloodline of a dragon god. In the future, it'll be easier for her to reach the level of a god. I'll pass your strengths to her at the last moment. Follow her, and continue to charge towards it. Thank you for all these years. It's because of all of you that I was able to turn from an ordinary boy into what I am today. Huo Yuhao's eyes were filled with guilt. However, he was extremely determined. The Ice Empress turned frantic in his spiritual sea. She tried to muster her origin power to stop him. The Skydream Iceworm was also frantic, and he furiously shouted, "Stupid." His golden tears also flowed. The little Snow Lady, who was originally on Huo Yuhao's back, was forced back into Huo Yuhao's body with a strong power, and entered his spiritual sea too. The Snow Empress, who looked like a teenager right now, looked slightly sorrowful, and now seemed to be a little more quick-witted too. However, they couldn't do anything right now. Huo Yuhao dominated his own spiritual sea. The Skydream Iceworm was even the one who had personally conferred this authority onto him. Right now, that became their biggest restriction. At this moment, they realized what Huo Yuhao was trying to do. However, they couldn't do anything to stop him. Huo Yuhao's 3 eyes were extremely bright. Far into the east, the sky gradually turned marble white. However, it couldn't compare to the bright light that shone from his eyes. Streaks of sword lights slashed towards Huo Yuhao. However, they were only able to brush past his body, no matter how strong and concentrated they were. There seemed to be an unprecedentedly strong force on his body that was protecting him and preventing any interruption. A dim projection appeared behind Huo Yuhao before it turned illusory. This projection was himself. It was a dim golden projection of Huo Yuhao. Right now, he seemed very peaceful and quiet. He shut his eyes and sat cross-legged. As he stretched his hands in front of him, his index fingers and thumbs formed a heart shape. A strange golden fog started to rise from this projection. No, it wasn't a fog. It was a flame instead. It was a flame that was burning. Everything around him turned bright, as if dawn had arrived in advance. Every soul engineer from the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion was moved without any reason. They were even unable to hold their soul tools anymore, and lowered them. They were all in a daze as they looked at the projection of the burning man. Huo Yuhao seemed very huge and tall right now. There was a proud look in his eyes, as if he were watching all life. His smile was very gentle, but it also seemed to be a scornful smile, directed at his enemies. He was burning. He had ignited his spiritual sea. Was he crazy? Could he actually do something like this? Whether it was the 3rd elder, the 4th elder or Wu Yu, who had just recovered from the blow she had sustained from Huo Yuhao's spiritual shock, they were all astonished as they looked at Huo Yuhao. Soul Masters might choose to ignite their own soul power in the face of a crisis to generate extremely strong offensive strength. However, it was very difficult to stop such an ignition after it had started. Even if it was stopped, the Soul Master's cultivation would still be greatly affected, and he might sustain a permanent injury. If it couldn't be stopped, his soul power would burn until there was nothing left and he would die. As a result, Soul Masters rarely chose to ignite their soul power, even in the face of a crisis. As for igniting one's spiritual power and spiritual sea, however, it was something that was unknown and unheard of. Spiritual power and spirits were magical existences, no matter whether it was in the world of Soul Masters or Soul Engineers. No one could clearly explain what they were. Even for a spiritual type Soul Master, his understanding of spiritual power was very limited if his cultivation wasn't high enough. This video will end here.